The alien empire of Valyric stretched across dozens of star systems. Its fleets were powerful, its science advanced, and its royal family respected across the galaxy. At the heart of that empire lived Princess Althira, the only daughter of the ruling queen. From a young age, she had been taught duty before desire, balance before emotion, and tradition before happiness. To the galaxy, Princess Althira was perfect. To herself, she felt empty. Every day followed the same pattern. She woke in chambers carved from glowing crystal stone. Servants bowed, advisors waited, and schedules filled every moment of her life. She attended councils, reviewed alliance proposals, and listened to endless speeches praising her beauty, intelligence, and importance. None of it touched her heart. Suitors came from everywhere. Alien princes arrived in golden ships, promising strong alliances. Military commanders bowed before her, offering protection and glory. Scholars recited poetry written in her honor. Merchants promised wealth that could last generations. They all smiled the same way. They all spoke the same careful words, and she dismissed them all, politely at first, then firmly, eventually, without apology. Her mother, Queen Zalara, watched with growing concern. The empire needed stability. A royal bond would secure peace with rival systems. Every rejection weakened political ties. Advisors whispered that the princess was too cold, too proud, too detached. They were wrong. Althira was not cold. She was tired. She felt like everyone who stood before her wanted something from her power, status, security. No one asked what she wanted. No one spoke to her like she was a person instead of a symbol. At night, when the palace lights dimmed, she stood alone on her balcony and stared into space. Stars shimmered like distant promises she was never allowed to touch. Somewhere out there, life was simple. Somewhere, someone laughed without thinking of duty. She wondered if she would ever feel that. The turning point began on an ordinary day. A galactic coordination summit was being held at the Valyric's capital. Dozens of species arrived to discuss trade routes, defense agreements, and scientific cooperation. The palace was filled with delegates, guards, and staff from many worlds. Among them was a small human delegation. Humans were still relatively new to the wider galaxy. Known for adaptability rather than raw power, they were often underestimated. Their delegation was small, quiet, and placed far from the main halls of influence. One of them was a human technician named Evan Carter. Evan was not important in any political sense. He had no noble title, no military rank. His task was simple: maintain the communication arrays linking the summit chambers to distant fleets and councils. If he did his job well, no one would notice him at all. And that was exactly how Evan preferred it. While nobles argued in grand halls, Evan worked behind the walls, moving through maintenance corridors with a toolkit in his hands. He fixed relays, adjusted energy flows, and rerouted damaged systems. He had worked on human stations far less advanced than this palace, and he treated the alien technology with the same calm focus. He did not know that fate was quietly watching him. During one of the summit's most important sessions, a major holo-communication system failed. The chamber lights flickered. The massive projection of allied leaders froze mid-sentence. Murmurs spread through the hall. Advisors panicked. Guards stiffened. Princess Althira sat upon her elevated seat, watching the disruption with mild annoyance. Failures were rare in Valyric's technology. When they happened, they were considered embarrassing. Technicians rushed in, arguing in low voices. None of them could find the fault quickly. Evan was already there. He moved calmly past the others, knelt beside a control panel, and removed a small access plate. His fingers moved with practiced ease. He adjusted a damaged power node, rerouted the signal through a backup channel, and stabilized the energy flow. Within moments, the system came back online. The chamber fell silent. Applause broke out. But Evan had already stepped back, returning tools to his case. He did not look up. He did not bow. He did not wait for praise. He simply turned and walked away to the next task. Princess Althira noticed, not because of the applause, but because of what he did not do. He did not seek attention. Later that day, she asked an advisor a simple question. Who fixed the system? The advisor hesitated. A human technician, Your Highness. Insignificant role. Temporary assignment. Bring him to me, she said. The advisor looked surprised but obeyed. When Evan was summoned, he assumed something had gone wrong. He stood in the audience chamber, feeling very small beneath the high ceilings and glowing symbols of royal authority. Guards lined the walls. Advisors watched him with curiosity and suspicion. Princess Althea descended from her seat and approached him slowly. You repaired the communication failure, she said. Yes, Your Highness, Evan replied simply. You did so quickly. I've seen similar issues before. She studied him carefully. Most beings avoided her gaze or tried too hard to impress her. Evan did neither. He met her eyes calmly, without challenge or fear. Do you know who I am? She asked. Yes, he said. You're the princess. No extra titles. No rehearsed flattery. Something inside her shifted. Most would say more than that, she said. Evan shrugged lightly. I figured you hear enough of that already. The advisors stiffened. Such casual words were unusual. Risky. The princess did not correct him. Why did you not wait for recognition? She asked. Because the system working is the important part, Evan answered. Not who fixed it. She had never heard that before. After a pause, she dismissed the guards and advisors, leaving only the two of them in the chamber. The air felt lighter, less heavy with expectation. You may go, she said. Evan bowed slightly and turned to leave. Wait, she added. He stopped. What do humans value most? She asked. Evan thought for a moment. That's a big question. But I think being honest and being useful. She nodded slowly. You may go, she said again. As he left, Princess Althea remained standing, thoughtful. For the first time in years, she felt curious instead of tired. Over the following days, she found reasons to walk through areas of the palace she normally never visited. Maintenance wings, observation decks, communication hubs, and more than once, she saw Evan working quietly, humming to himself, focused and unbothered by status. Each time, her chest felt strangely warm. She did not understand it yet, but something had begun, something real. And for the first time in her life, the alien princess did not dismiss what she felt. After the summit incident, life inside the Valyrics palace returned to its careful rhythm. Councils resumed, advisors argued, and nobles continued their endless attempts to earn the princess's attention. On the surface, nothing had changed, but inside Princess Althea, everything felt different. She found her thoughts drifting at unexpected moments. During meetings, her attention slipped. At night, when she stood on her balcony, she no longer felt only emptiness. There was curiosity now, a quiet pull she could not explain. She thought of the human. Evan Carter continued his work as before. He repaired systems, checked signal relays, and responded to maintenance requests. To him, the palace was simply another complex structure with problems to solve. He did not think much about the princess after their brief conversation. He assumed it was a one-time encounter. He was wrong. One morning, as Evan adjusted a sensor array near the inner gardens, a soft voice spoke behind him. You seem to spend a lot of time fixing things no one notices. He turned, surprised. Princess Althea stood there alone, wearing simple royal attire instead of ceremonial robes. No guards followed her. No advisors hovered nearby. I guess that means things are working, Evan replied. She tilted her head slightly. Does it not bother you? Being unnoticed? Evan considered the question while tightening a panel. Not really. I like knowing something works because I was there, even if no one knows my name. That answer stayed with her. She began to visit more often. Sometimes she asked questions about human technology. Other times, she simply watched him work. Their conversations were short, at first, then slowly longer. Evan spoke openly, unaware that he was doing something rare, speaking to a royal without fear. He told her about Earth, about cities full of noise and chaos, about humans arguing, failing, and trying again. He spoke of how humans did not have perfect systems, but they adapted. Princess Althea listened closely. In return, she spoke of her world, of traditions older than memory, of expectations that shaped her life from the moment she was born. She spoke carefully at first, then more freely, surprised by how easy it felt. Evan never interrupted, never judged. For the first time, she felt heard. As days passed, palace staff began to notice. Whispers moved through corridors. Some nobles frowned when they saw the princess walking near maintenance wings. Advisors exchanged worried looks. Humans were tolerated, not trusted. One advisor, Lord Vethrix, saw danger in the growing connection. He believed power should remain controlled and predictable. A human technician was neither. He approached the queen. "Your Majesty," he said carefully. "The princess spends much time with the human." Queen Zalara's expression darkened slightly. "I am aware. This may weaken her standing. Other factions are already questioning her judgment." The queen sighed. She loved her daughter, but she also carried the weight of an empire. "I will speak to her." That evening, Princess Althea was summoned to her mother's private chamber. "You have been spending time with the human," the queen said calmly. "Yes," Althea replied. "Why?" Althea hesitated, then answered honestly. "Because he speaks to me as if I matter." The queen studied her carefully. "You always mattered." "I mattered as a symbol," Althea said softly. "Not as myself." Silence filled the room. "You know the risks," the queen said. "He has no status, no political value. That is why he is different," Althea replied. The queen did not forbid her, but neither did she approve. Meanwhile, Evan began to feel the pressure. Some palace staff avoided him. Others watched him closely. A few spoke sharply, questioning his presence. He noticed security checks became stricter. Requests for his work grew fewer. He understood the message. One afternoon, while repairing a data conduit, Evan was confronted by Lord Vethrix. "You are overstepping," the advisor said coldly. "I'm just doing my job," Evan replied. "You are confusing the princess." Evan paused. "I never asked for her attention." "That does not matter," Vethrix said. "You are replaceable." That night, Evan made a decision. He requested a transfer back to the human fleet. Princess Althea learned of it the next morning. She found him in the hangar bay, standing beside his packed equipment. "You are leaving," she said. "Yes," Evan replied. "It's better this way." "Better for whom?" "For you," he said gently. "I don't want to cause trouble." Her chest tightened. "You make no demands," she said. "You seek no power. And yet they fear you." Evan smiled faintly. "That's kind of a human thing." She stepped closer. "If you leave, things will return to how they were." He looked at her, truly looked at her. "Is that what you want?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time, she was afraid of her own answer. Before she could speak, alarms sounded. The palace lights flickered violently. Energy surged through the hangar. A warning signal echoed across the station. External breach detected. Chaos followed. A rival faction had launched a cyber attack targeting the summit systems, aiming to disrupt alliances and steal data. Security teams scrambled. Automated defenses malfunctioned. Evan dropped his bag. "Where's the main control hub?" he asked. Princess Althea pointed. "That way." Without hesitation, Evan ran. Inside the control hub, systems flashed red. Alien technicians struggled to understand the unfamiliar attack pattern. Evan moved through the chaos with sharp focus. "This isn't brute force," he said. "It's adaptive." He rerouted systems, isolated corrupted nodes, and rewrote protocols on the fly. Human logic clashed with alien design, and won. The attack slowed, then stopped. Silence fell. Princess Althea watched from the doorway, heart pounding. She saw the truth clearly now. This human did not bring weakness. He brought resilience. Later, as repairs finished and calm returned, the queen arrived. She looked at the restored systems, at the reports, at the human, standing quietly in the corner. "You saved us," Queen Zalara said. Evan shook his head. "I just helped." The queen turned to her daughter. Princess Althira stood taller than she ever had before. "He makes me happy," she said simply. The words echoed through the chamber, and for the first time, the Empire began to understand that happiness, real happiness, might be its greatest strength. The palace of Valerix did not return to normal after the attack. On the surface, systems were repaired, and defenses strengthened. Councils praised efficiency, reports were filed and archived. But beneath all of it, something had shifted, and everyone could feel it. Princess Althira's words echoed through the halls. "He makes me happy." Those words unsettled the Empire more than the cyber attack ever had. Some nobles were shocked. Others were angry. A few were afraid. Happiness was not something rulers spoke of openly. Power, duty, and stability were the language of empires, not personal truth. And yet, the princess had spoken clearly. Evan Carter remained at the palace, though not by his own request. After the attack, the Queen ordered that he stay until a full review was completed. Officially, it was for security evaluation. Unofficially, everyone knew it was because removing him now would cause more unrest than keeping him. Evan did not feel like a hero. He returned to his work quietly, avoiding attention when possible. But attention found him anyway. Guards nodded with new respect. Technicians asked for his opinion. Even some advisors watched him carefully, as if trying to understand how a single human had become so important. Princess Althira noticed everything. She also noticed how the pressure around Evan grew heavier each day. She met him that evening in a quiet observation hall overlooking the stars. The vast window showed fleets drifting like silver shadows in the distance. "They are watching you," she said. Evan leaned against the railing. "I noticed. I never wanted this to be difficult for you." Evan looked at her and smiled gently. "It was already difficult. Just different." She frowned. "Different how?" "Before, I was invisible," he said. The words hurt her more than she expected. "I won't let them hurt you," she said firmly. Evan shook his head. "You can't protect me from politics. Not without risking yourself." She was silent. The next day, the High Council of Valerix convened an emergency session. This was rare. When it happened, it meant the future of the Empire was being debated. Princess Althira stood at the center of the chamber, calm and composed. Around her, towering representatives of noble houses watched closely. Queen Zalara sat above them all, her expression unreadable. Lord Vethrix spoke first. "The issue before us is not the human's skill," he said. "It is his influence. The princess's judgment is being compromised." Althira met his gaze without fear. "My judgment has never been clearer," she said. Murmurs spread. "A royal bond must serve the Empire," another noble said. "Emotion weakens leadership." Althira took a slow breath. "You believe I dismissed others because I was arrogant," she said. "You were wrong. I dismissed them because none of them saw me." She stepped forward. "They saw my title, my bloodline, my value as a tool." Evan Carter saw a person. Silence followed. Lord Vethrix narrowed his eyes. "And what does this person offer Valerix?" Before Althira could answer, Evan stepped into the chamber. Gasps echoed. He had not been summoned. "I do," Evan said calmly. Guards moved, but the Queen raised her hand. "Speak," Queen Zalara said. Evan stood tall, though he was surrounded by beings far more powerful than him. "I don't offer titles," he said. "I don't offer fleets or political leverage. But humans don't survive by being the strongest. We survive by adapting." He gestured to the chamber. "Your systems are powerful, but rigid. Your traditions are strong, but unchanging. That attack yesterday? It was designed to exploit that." The council listened, despite themselves. "Humans expect failure," Evan continued. "So we plan for it. We don't assume perfection. We build resilience." He turned to the princess. "She doesn't need someone to control her. She needs someone who stands with her when things break." The chamber was silent. Queen Zalara studied him carefully. "You speak boldly," she said. "I speak honestly," Evan replied. That honesty shook the room. The council delayed its decision. But the tension only grew. Rumors spread across the empire. Some systems praised the princess's courage. Others warned of chaos. Then came the breaking point. A coalition of rival factions saw opportunity in the division. They launched a coordinated threat, this time not a cyber attack, but a fleet maneuver designed to test Valyric's defenses near a border system. It was not an open war. It was a message. The High Council panicked. Defense strategies were debated endlessly. Each option followed old doctrines, predictable, rigid. Princess Althira watched them argue. "This will fail," she said quietly. No one listened, except Evan. That night, she called him to the strategy chamber. "They won't change," she said. "They're afraid." Evan studied the star map. "Then don't fight the way they expect." He outlined a plan, not a show of force, but a calculated withdrawal combined with rapid signal deception. It was risky, unorthodox, human. The Queen was hesitant. "If this fails—" "It won't," Evan said, "because they're expecting us to be proud." Against tradition, Queen Zalara allowed the plan. The result stunned the galaxy. Valyric's fleets appeared to retreat, drawing the rival forces forward, then vanished. False signals scattered the enemy formation. Confusion spread. Before they could regroup, Valyric's defense systems locked them out completely. No shots were fired. The rival coalition withdrew in embarrassment. The Empire was safe. The Council could no longer deny the truth. In the aftermath, Princess Althira stood before the people of Valyrics and spoke openly. "For years, I believed happiness was weakness," she said. "I was taught that leadership meant sacrifice without reward." She paused. "I was wrong." She turned to Evan, standing at her side, not below her, not above her. "This human did not change who I am," she said. "He reminded me." Cheers echoed across the capital. Not everyone approved, but enough did. That night, as stars burned quietly beyond the palace windows, Princess Althira and Evan stood together in silence. "I don't know what the future looks like," she said. Evan smiled. "Neither do humans. We figure it out as we go." She laughed softly. For the first time, she did not feel alone in the uncertainty, and the galaxy was beginning to realize something dangerous and powerful. A happy ruler was not a weak one. She was unstoppable. The palace of Valyrics had never been quieter or more alive. After the recent events, the Empire seemed to breathe differently. Systems were repaired, fleets were secured, and rival factions were wary of repeating past mistakes. But behind the scenes, something far more profound had changed. Princess Althira had grown into herself in ways no council or tradition could have predicted. She walked the halls with confidence, her steps lighter than before, her eyes brighter. She no longer carried the weight of constant judgment alone. And standing beside her was Evan Carter, the human who had shown her a strength different from the fleets, different from the noble advisors. A strength born of honesty, courage, and quiet determination. Their connection had become the talk of the Empire. Whispers spread across star systems. The princess and the human, together? Some disapproved. Some admired. Some simply watched, wondering how one human could have changed so much. The council summoned a meeting to discuss the next phase of governance. For the first time, Princess Althira walked into that chamber, not as a figurehead under scrutiny, but as a leader with clarity and purpose. "Enough," she said, her voice steady, cutting through the murmurs. "The Empire's future is not built solely on titles, tradition, or fear. It is built on people, on trust, on loyalty, and on the strength to do what is right, even when it breaks convention." The room fell silent. Even Lord Vethrix, who had once questioned her judgment, could not find words. Evan stood beside her, not to overshadow, but to support. He did not speak immediately. He had learned that leadership in this world required patience, observation, and action at the right moment. The first test came swiftly. A neighboring system, seeing Valyrix's recent successes, sent an envoy demanding concessions over disputed trade routes. Other councils would have negotiated cautiously, fearing war or economic collapse. Althira studied the maps, the fleets, the communications, and then turned to Evan. "What would you do?" she asked quietly. Evan considered the options. "Show them respect, but don't let fear guide your choices. Let them know we value fairness, but we won't be intimidated." That afternoon, she addressed the envoys personally. She spoke not as a princess bound by protocol, but as a leader guided by clarity and integrity. She offered terms that were fair, direct, and enforceable. She looked each envoy in the eye. Evan had trained her to trust her instincts, and she did. The envoys left impressed, some even in awe. News of her decisive, balanced leadership spread like wildfire across neighboring systems, but the real transformation was quieter. The people of Valyric's nobles, citizens, and technicians alike noticed the change in her demeanor. She laughed more freely in the halls. She walked among them without the rigid formality that had always separated royalty from her subjects. And, for the first time, they saw a princess who could be happy without sacrificing her authority. Evan, meanwhile, continued his work. He moved among systems, assisting wherever his skills were needed, but always returned to the palace. He had become indispensable not just for his expertise, but for the perspective he offered. He reminded everyone that leadership was not about fear or control, it was about vision, courage, and connection. One evening, the palace held a celebration for the stabilization of the border systems and the successful defense of trade agreements. Music filled the halls, alien and human alike mingled, and laughter rang through spaces that had once been solemn and tense. Princess Althera moved through the crowd, her eyes finding Evan as he adjusted lighting systems to ensure the event ran smoothly. She approached him and took his hand. "You could have stayed invisible," she said softly. "No one would have blamed you." Evan shook his head. "I couldn't. And honestly, I didn't want to. Not after seeing the way you lead, the way you see the world, and the way you see me." Her chest warmed. "I didn't believe happiness could exist alongside duty. I thought I would always have to choose one or the other." "You don't," he said. "You can have both. You just need to trust yourself." Men. She looked around at the palace filled with lights, music, and life. She had seen fear, tradition, and expectations for so long. But tonight, she saw possibility. She saw hope, and she saw a future that she had the power to shape. Weeks turned into months. The empire adjusted to this new era, where the princess's decisions were guided not only by strategy, but also by compassion and insight. Councils learned to respect her judgment, fleets followed her commands without hesitation, and diplomats approached her with sincerity, not calculation. Evan remained a constant presence, but not because of rank or duty, because he had chosen to be there. He advised, assisted, and sometimes challenged her. And each time he did, he reminded her that strength could be gentle, courage could be patient, and leadership could be humane. The ultimate test came when a diplomatic summit involving multiple galactic factions was scheduled on Valyrix. Rival systems still watched the Empire with caution, curious if the princess's approach would succeed. Althera prepared meticulously. She reviewed treaties, studied the customs of each delegation, and consulted her advisors. But she also consulted Evan. "This isn't just about negotiations," she said. "It's about showing the galaxy what Valyrix stands for. Not just power, but integrity and vision." Evan smiled. "Then show them who you are. Not the princess, the person." During the summit, Althera addressed representatives from every system. She spoke eloquently, clearly, and with a quiet authority. She negotiated with firmness but tempered it with empathy. The delegates left not only respecting Valyrix's power but admiring its leadership. Evan watched from the sidelines, quietly proud. It was more than skill, it was courage, honesty, and the willingness to embrace happiness without fear. Later, in the quiet of the observation deck, Althera and Evan stood together, looking at the stars. "You've changed everything," she said softly. He shook his head. "No, you did. I just reminded you who you were." She smiled, a rare, unguarded smile. "I never thought a human could make me so happy, And also make me a better ruler. And a stronger empire, he added. She leaned on his shoulder, gazing at the infinite expanse of space. The stars glimmered as if in approval. For the first time, Althea realized that happiness was not weakness. It was power. It was clarity. It was vision. And it could change an entire empire. Evan squeezed her hand gently. We'll face the future together. Whatever comes. Althea nodded. Together. The galaxy had once underestimated a single human. Now it would never make that mistake again. Valyrics thrived not because of fleets or laws alone, but because one human had shown an alien princess that happiness, trust, and courage could redefine the course of history. And in doing so, he had made her truly happy. The Empire would remember this time for generations. The era when the alien princess dismissed everyone, until one human showed her a life worth living, and a happiness worth protecting.